Before the Fellowship was the greatest story you've never heard. I'm Dan.
I'm Greg.
I'm Cameron.
Join us as we read and react to the Silmarillion by J.R.R. Tolkien. All right, guys, it's great to be here today to read the Silmarillion together. As I mentioned earlier, my name's Dan, and I've got my two brothers here, Cam, aka Camwë, and Gregolas, aka Greg.
It's my
His
real
name's
name.
Greg,
Yeah.
not Gregolas, just to be clear.
Gregolas is his nickname. Greg is his
yeah.
full name.
And I'm Danrod. Did you get that reference, by the way, Danrod?
Finrod?
I think it's an Elrond effort. No, Finrod. Finrod.
Oh no, there's a man called Damrod, and
Really?
he's like, he's friends with Boromir or Faramir. No, he's like
He's friends with Nimrod.
maybe. He's a Faramir guard or something like guard for Faramir, and actually he meets Frodo and Sam at some point.
Okay, I gotta look that up.
I know. I want to
he
fact
doesn't
check
believe
on
me.
this.
You don't.
I'm the
You
only
guys
one-
are just like don't believe me. That's
No,
this is my Lord of the Rings name, Danrod.
Yeah, I just gotta see it.
Ouch.
Am I the only one with the name in the Silmarillion, reference in the Silmarillion?
Mine's probably in there too.
You know,
So Finrod is in the Silmarillion. isn't
Finrod is,
Danrod
yeah.
might be too.
Finrod is. The Fellowship is mentioned in. I mean, so Legolas is not mentioned by name, but in
Oh,
the
that's right, at the very end.
very end, there's like something about the Third Age.
Wait, what is this What is that? How do you spell Silmarillion? Who are we? What are we doing?
Yeah, so we want to read through this great book of J.R.R. Tolkien called The Silmarillion. You might have read The Hobbit or The Lord of the Rings, and you might have even read The Silmarillion. All of us here have read or tried to read The Silmarillion as well as the other books, and we wanted to do it again in anticipation of the TV series that's coming out that's supposed to be based on the works of Tolkien. We'll see how good that is. Although I did see the little trailer that came out today on July 22nd. I thought that was pretty good.
Yes, visually it was, I would say, incredible. Like really.
Really
well
incredible visually.
Except some shots you can tell are just CG shots that feel very fake and put on. It doesn't have that authentic, grounded feel that Jackson's films had. But I was impressed with the cinematography.
Yeah. I thought CGI was pretty awesome. I mean, it was nowhere near as bad as Reva coming down in Obi-Wan Kenobi in that ship when she lands, and it looks like it's just like pasted on. It's so bad.
Done in Microsoft Paint.
Greg, what did you think of the trailer? Did you get to see it yet?
I have not seen it yet, and actually, I didn't see Obi-Wan either. I was told by a trusted source that I wouldn't like it.
You definitely wouldn't like it.
I don't know. Maybe I'll get.
Greg,
Disney
you've
Plus
read
for
the Silmarillion, right?
I have read it, yeah.
Once or more?
Once, just about a year ago. And I know for Dan and myself, that's something we were thinking about early on was it's so good. I mean, even if you've just heard bits and pieces of it, it's so good.
Mm-hmm.
But I think it's a little bit intimidating for people to just pick up off the shelf. And we thought this would be a great way to make it more accessible too. Just actually going through the entire story. There's a lot of names. There's a lot of Elvish and everything that's hard to pronounce or whatever it is. And we're not really experts either. But
yeah, that's a really important point. Like, I don't feel like I get nervous when I say I'm a Tolkien fan, and other people hear that I'm a Tolkien fan, and they want to like speak to me in Elvish or something, or like ask me a really obscure question. I get really nervous because I'm not that much. I want to be that cool, but I don't know that much about the mythology. So I've read the Silmarillion once, and then I read about half of it to my wife because I'm like, you've got to hear some of these stories. They're just incredible. Yeah, I think, most people have seen the films. A lot of people have read the books, but very, very few people have read the Silmarillion. I would say it might be my favorite piece of fiction. It's just that epicness of it, the lore, the doom, the conflict. Like, it's such a big story, and I'm excited to just be forced to go through it again, because it's just an amazing piece of fiction.
Yeah, definitely. It's the scale is so much different from Lord of the Rings. It's kind of like almost a biblical scale, right? Of just like this vast history.
Yeah, you thought Sauron was big and bad. Have you ever heard of Morgoth? People are like, what? Who's that? That sounds interesting.
When I was reading it the first time, I was also at the same time listening to Father Mike's Bible in a Year podcast, and it was kind of funny just like contrasting, hearing, so much of it is just the narrative books of the Old Testament. So it was like comparing just the I don't know, the misery of Israel over millennia or whatever, there's a lot of that in the Silmarillion too, where there's just these peoples that are striving for good things.
Yeah, Lord of the Rings happens over the course of like weeks or something. I mean, It has like a preface that gives more background, I imagine.
Yeah.
But it's not a long period of time, where the Silmarillion, like, you're dealing with conflict upon betrayal, upon redemption, upon more betrayal.
Yeah.
Over the course of this long history.
Right.
Yeah, it's huge.
Right.
Huge in scope.
But for some people, like, to be fair, it's tough to get through. In fact, we're going to show a clip in a moment. Cameron will paste it in at the end. But Greg and Cameron, just go ahead and quickly watch this little meme, and let's just discuss this topic real quick.
Okay.
I'm nervous. It's
okay.
Quite a long thing.
Yeah, that's a nice little lighthearted adventure. It's such a quick and easy read, too. I should probably check out Lord of the Rings. Wow, amazing. This is definitely more of a bear to read than The Hobbit, but totally worth it. No wonder this is a classic. I should probably read the Silmarillion next. Wait a minute, which character is this? Or is this one of the gods? Who is... How do you even pronounce her name? Fingolfin of Noldor? Who? What? I have no idea what I'm reading. Is this even by the same author that wrote The Hobbit? How? Maybe this'll help. Nope. Whew. Finally done. I have no idea what I just read. Pretty good, though. I think. Maybe I should read it again.
It's done for me.
Yeah, done.
Okay, good.
Yeah, I mean, that is part of it. Kind of what you're saying, Cameron, like, the scale is so big that actually a lot of the characters don't span the whole narrative. So they're always learning new names and meeting new characters, which is kind of hard. And it's funny, I was trying to predict what that meme was going to show at the end, and I pictured maybe if I were making this meme, he would have had like maps printed, like hanging on his wall and charts and stuff, and
family trees as well.
Yeah, when I read it the first time, I was like just trying to like take some notes and just keep track of
it's awesome.
Who's who and why are they important? Why do I need to remember them? And who's married to who and who's begotten by who? And and that's part of what can be intimidating, but it's we'll get through it together. That's the whole point.
Yeah,
that's how I feel too. And my book had a family tree in the back, so I was referencing that all the time. That's really helpful.
Mine does too, though I don't know where mine is right now. But I think the point is just that, like, we recognize that there's probably need to go baby steps through this more than any of the other works, like The Hobbit or The Lord of the Rings, which are it's just an enjoyable adventure. Yes, for some people in The Lord of the Rings, you have to get through the kind of songs and the poetry and some of the
And the
drier
walking.
kind of
Yeah.
walking around.
A very detailed description of the natural
Yes.
landscape.
Yes, the natural landscape descriptions. But in this book, I mean, it is more biblical in scope, as you said. And so a baby step approach with us as we're drinking whiskey or not drinking and just chatting, I think is going to be a great way to break it down. So we're gonna read the foreword today, and then we're gonna have a brief discussion on that. And then next episode we'll actually jump into the narrative. Any final thoughts before we start reading, boys?
I would say it's probably important for people to know kind of our format and how we're approaching it and what makes us different from other podcasts. And just to kick it off, I would say we're gonna, in future episodes, the hope is, and this could obviously change, the hope is we get right into the book. This isn't an hour-long show where we're, you know, going deep into like the mythology and like a lot of side content. We're just going to give you a reading of the actual story. That's something I would love to have. And so we want to give that to you. It's like you turn on the podcast, you hear, 7 to 15 minutes of reading, and then just a short discussion at the end.
Yeah. My final thought before you get into the forward here is, contrary to what the guy says in the meme, I think you can actually just enjoy it. You don't have to think you enjoyed it or think, oh, maybe that's good, but I don't really know. Because I think so many of the stories, they really are just good and beautiful and tragic. And you don't even need to, remember all the names or keep that all straight to see that part of it.
Yeah.
You can really appreciate it for what it is. And it's just a collection of all these different stories that kind of are woven into one larger narrative, but they're all so interesting. So I don't think there's a bad one in the whole book.
That's awesome.
Okay, my final appendix thoughts are, which section are you guys most excited to hear in this story after reading the Silmarillion before? Like what story within the story are you excited for the most?
Okay, just full disclosure, I didn't make it all the way through. It was tough.
Okay,
I mean,
well,
the
yeah, I
first
didn't
10
ask
years
you
ago.
if you read it all.
And so I'm just excited to get to those stories that you guys cherish. I think I love the opening sequence. I think it's beautiful and very, very rich. But I'm excited to get to the stories that you guys are going to be most excited about.
So I think one of the more surprising things in the story for me, I'd heard mention of the story of Baron and Luthien, and I'd heard that it was just like a really beautiful story, but one element of it that I'm really looking forward to is their little buddy Huan, which is their dog, who like, I believe he like fights like a wolf form of Sauron at some point,
or something like that.
And it was just a great little. I mean, it's a very small character in some ways, but even this animal was like a hero in the story in some ways. It was just kind of, it's not totally removed from just some of the kind of fantasy of The Hobbit. It's obviously the same world. Like there's these little glimpses of things that are just kind of wacky and fun.
Yeah, I have a similar answer. So Baron and Luthien is like right in the middle of the Silmarillion. Dan, did you get to that part when you read it the first time?
No, sir.
So I really like the character of Baron. I won't say much. Just to say, like, Tolkien writes such heroic men, and just the sacrifice he makes and his love of justice and loyalty is incredible. Like there might be a point where I'm reading it and I'm tearing up because it's so beautiful. So excited to get into it.
Yeah. I love it. Great. Well, let's jump into it. This is the foreword, and it will be about 7 minutes. The Silmarillion, now published 4 years after the death of its author, is an account of the Elder Days, or the first age of the world. In The Lord of the Rings, were narrated the great events at the end of the Third Age. But the tales of the Silmarillion are legends deriving from a much deeper past, where Morgoth, the first Dark Lord, dwelt in Middle-earth, and the High Elves made war upon him for the recovery of the Silmarils. Not only, however, does the Silmarillion relate the events of a far earlier time than those of the Lord of the Rings, it is also, in all the essentials of its conception, the far earlier work. Indeed, although it was not then called the Silmarillion, it was already in being half a century ago, and in battered notebooks extending back to 1917 can still be read the earliest versions, often hastily penciled, of the central stories of the mythology. But it was never published, though some indication of its content could be gleaned from The Lord of the Rings. And throughout my father's long life, he never abandoned it, nor ceased, even in his last years, to work on it. I have not burdened the book further with any sort of commentary or annotation. There is indeed a wealth of unpublished writing by my father concerning the three ages: narrative, linguistic, historical, and philosophical, and I hope that it will prove possible to publish some of this at a later date. In the difficult and doubtful task of preparing the text of the book, I was very greatly assisted by Guy Kay, who worked with me in 1974 to 1975. Christopher Tolkien.
Thanks, Guy K.
Little do we know he's going to be a very important figure in this podcast.
Yeah. He also comes at the critical moment in the Silmarillion.
We should have at the beginning some like dramatically sad music and put in memory of Guy K.
He worked with him for a year. But yeah, no one knows his name, but now he will be famous. He will be remembered.
Yes.
Great.
One final thought that I had after hearing you talk, I know we're not going to go into a full discussion, but obviously a good way to experience this podcast is just to listen to it while you're doing whatever you're doing. But if you do have a copy of a book, you could follow along too, and sometimes that will help seeing these names or whatever it is. And the maps that he's talking about, he just mentioned that there's maps and there's an index of all these names, and that was something that was helpful for me. Obviously, we'll discuss some of this stuff, but it was helpful for me in reading it and understanding it better, being able to look, say I forgot a name. I could go look in the index and then reread a paragraph that helped me contextualize that character again. So.
Yeah, and another thing I would say is that we just re-stress this point. We're not experts, okay? So we would love to hear from you if we do pronounce things wrong or if we get misunderstandings. Please do teach us, send in comments, whatever. But also have mercy on us because we're not experts in Tolkien or his language or his literature. We just love him. We think he's one of the most important writers of this millennia. So it's just an honor to be able to read through this together and kind of discover some of the themes in the book.
So if you guys like what you're hearing and are interested in following us, it would really help us if you went ahead and rated us 3 Silmarillions out of 3. That's a joke that you're going to laugh at in like 3 days. It's going to be hilarious. Follow us on social media everywhere at Before the Fellowship, and send your feedback to beforethefellowship@gmail.com. And join us next week as we continue reading the greatest story you've never heard, The Silmarillion by J.R.R. Tolkien.